Hello, everyone, and welcome to Light News Radio. We are so glad to have you. We have an amazing lineup for you. Now we are in our 5th year, bringing you spiritually conscious subjects and discussion. I'm Dr. J, your host, and my amazing co-host is Deirdre Leighton. So please do share and follow. Together, we bring you grounded metaphysics where the spiritual rubber hits the road, real-life teachings and applications that are pertinent and relevant to you. Here you will find the safety way, as my teacher would say, a place where you can breathe the fresh air of real spiritual education while avoiding the hype and the fascination. We are all about helping you to empower your life through understanding your true spiritual nature. So come aboard our beam of light and enlighten your load as we travel the waves of knowledge and wisdom for the next hour. How you doing, Deirdre?
I'm doing great. You know, we are so working hard to get this to work and to see what's going on and to figure it all out. And part of it, I think of myself as being one who can pick up new technology and new knowledge and
That's
stuff
fact.
quickly. But this is a learning curve for me, and it's working. Well, it's a work in progress, so we're doing okay. We really are. It's gonna be great.
Well, our first program, which was our newest foray into this venue of Facebook Live, was I had my cell phone up, and I was trying to add Deirdre, and of course I found out that what you do is you go live and then you add someone earlier before your start time so that you get all the kinks worked out. So it's an amazing thing for two geeks. That's Deirdre and I. And of course, you know what geek means. Geek means electronically knowledgeable, and it means genetically enhanced electronically knowledgeable. We can't even get the geek part right. And we both have advanced educations. So it's a great time.
Yeah, and I mean, you have one viewer, which apparently is me, but that's okay. I'm sharing this out, and we'll see what we can do about getting more people and getting them on, and so that they can see that we are live on air now. Come join us.
She said as she very quickly or quicklier typed into her iPad.
That's right. That's right.
Well, you should know we've been doing this program for over 4 years now, but our prior format was just through the internet, without screenshots or video. And we were part of the Old Radio Network, and Light News Radio had been broadcasting 4 times a week. In fact, every Wednesday.
4 times a month.
4 times a month. Every Wednesday. And now we have the advantage of doing this on video. And like the other shows that are archived and are available to you on our website, www.lightnews, that's lightnews.org, that you can stream and download. So you don't have to be here at 2:30 Pacific on a Friday afternoon. You can stream it later. And please do follow and share.
Yes, and we're going to work at this. It's lots of fun to be playing with new technology as Richard's chair grabs mine and rolls me away.
I was trying to make room for her.
Anyhow, today I want to interview Richard. Richard has been instrumental in a lot of ways. Oh wow!
Is that too bright?
No, that's great.
There we go.
In a lot of ways of how my life has changed and things like that, and it's been through a grounded understanding of who I am as a spiritual being. And I think that his courses and his workshops and things have really helped a lot of individuals. And now I use those tools and techniques to also help other individuals along their path. So today I really wanted to, I've got some notes here. Today I really wanted to talk a little bit about that, and and then just, you know, do a live interview here with Richard and move forward and see, so you can understand where he's going, where he's coming from, who he is, and all that wonderful stuff. So I'm really curious about you and private sessions and what a private session is. And on top of that, you know, we plan on giving one away today. So whether or not you make it on live right now, if you don't, but you leave a comment and like our page, we will certainly put you in for a draw, and we will draw one free private session with Richard. And that's a value of $180. So it's pretty cool. So here we go. Richard, how long have you been doing private sessions in this field?
I'm sorry. More technology. I've been doing this work for over 30 years now. My spiritual quest started around 1987. And I was just very fascinated with the whole field of spirituality. I had been living pretty much a regular life up until that time. And I centered on spiritualism, mostly because, you know, some of the other more mainstream religions that I was exposed to, having been raised Catholic and looked at Southern Baptists, they didn't really give me enough of a spiritual taste of what I really wanted to look at to nurture my own spirit. And so I had started doing my own form of spiritual counseling, and then became an ordained minister. When you're ordained, you can use the title reverend, in 1995. And so I was doing spiritual counseling. The idea behind that type of counseling is what is called evocative. To evoke is to get someone to access their inner feelings, their inner truth, the truth of their nature. It isn't so much for someone to go, oh my Lord, I'm so spiritual. It's more to help us realize the potential, the spiritual power that we have tucked away inside of us that for most of us is sleeping. That's not a bad thing. But the idea behind any type of counseling that I do is always returning the power to the person. No matter who you go to, whether it's myself or Deirdre or someone else, there is always the matter of returning the power to the person so that they realize that it was their own ability to create the reading in the first place that helped them to get the guidance that they sought. See, the thing is that there's many, many psychics. My teacher says psychics are as common as dust. But to be truly intuitive from a spiritual standpoint means to recognize that each of us are what I call co-creative, conscious collaborators. Co-creative, conscious collaborators. And what that means is that our spiritual nature, that part of us that is not limited to space or time, but is still us, is consciously and subconsciously creating the circumstances, the sequences of events, where we step into that moment where we have the opportunity to evolve ourselves. Some people call it synchronicity. And great thinkers like Einstein and Nobel laureates have talked about this synchronicity, that there's no coincidences, there's no chance circumstances, that everything happens on a very subtle level. So getting to the point means that every one of us is creating the means for evolving ourselves. That is to let go of the illusion that we feel we're separate from what we seek. And so while some of the lessons may be incredibly painful, and I get that, the spiritual counselor is there to help you access the power that you already have, not power that you have to go find or that you have to go get. Now, why is that? It's because if you're really part of a oneness, if you really believe that you're part of everything, which science is proving, then you're a part of all love, all wisdom, all will. And so in a humorous way, there's nothing to find because nothing's lost. There's nowhere to go because you're already there. It's like Alan Watts, the philosopher, said, if I am my foot, then I am the sun. And it's just a way of saying that we are a part of all creation. Like, you're not living in the universe. You are the universe. Experience yourself through an aperture that you call whatever your name may be. So then in my work, I started focusing on the chakras. And people say, well, what are those things? Well, it's an interesting idea to broach, because in the field of metaphysics, the thing that makes us put on the brakes is when someone tells you you are both a physical and a non-physical being. That you have a physical body that experiences time and space, but you have another body that is beyond time and space, but still unique. So how can something be unique and be beyond time and space? So this is quite the conundrum. And it's why a lot of people will put on the brakes.
Yeah. So how does that work for a private session?
So the idea is to help the person merge the spiritual self and the physical self as one. Think of it this way, that the higher part of yourself, the spiritual self, and the physical self are just two sides of the same coin. It's one coin with two aspects. So I started becoming very interested in the chakras. These are the centers of energy that are lined up more or less along the column of the spine. And they are the conduits that merge the spiritual self and the physical self. So in the very, very earliest part of the 90s, I started to develop a theory, because when I was working with people, I saw that one chakra might be more dominant, might be more powerful than the others. And so it's a lot like being right or left-handed. There's nothing wrong with your non-dominant hand. It's just that you tend to use one hand more than the others. It's more prevalent, and like you could write your name with your non-dominant hand, but it probably wouldn't turn out in the way that you like.
Well, I just want to say, I see we have some other people that have come online.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you let us know who you are, we can certainly chit-chat with you. That would be really great. And like I had said at the beginning of this interview, I'm sorry, my nose is really itchy. If I had said at the beginning of the interview is that today we will be hopefully doing a live on-air private session with Dr. Jelusich. If we don't get someone who is interested, we will draw from the names in the comments and definitely get that information, and then have Dr. Jelusich do a private session with you at another time. So you've been doing these for a long time.
Yeah.
You know, people come and see you about all kinds of different things. What is one of the key elements that an individual expects when they come to see you for a private session?
The bottom line is self-empowerment. I know I started talking about the chakras, but it's because each chakra has unique intuitive abilities, and our intuition is on 24/7, all of us.
Right, right.
And so if you knew that, your intuitive centers were on and one was more powerful, it would help you understand why you perceive things the way you do. So bottom line, it's always self-empowerment, and it's always helping the person to realize that they have the power to dissolve, overcome, and evaporate their challenges. They may still have challenges, but if you have the tools to be able to meet and resolve those challenges, if you become stronger, more adept, more aware, then obviously the challenges will not be as stringent or as rough as some of the challenges we go through. And for some of us, those challenges are very, very powerful. In 30 years of doing this work, I've seen pretty much.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So can you give me some examples of what types of things have occurred, or what types of people have come to see you for a session, and without giving away any information that we really can't share, what was the outcome and what was the feedback?
Well, one part of this work, is safety and ethics and confidentiality. Another is having great respect for the person that you work with. And so I always ask if I can be direct and to the point. And sometimes the information is very, very touchy, so this respect has to be in place when doing a session. We can't prescribe or diagnose,
No.
but we do see things that are going on. There was a woman that came to me years ago for a session, a spiritual counseling session. And her story was that she could not conceive children. She had a brother, but she was estranged from her brother. They never talked. And I said, that's interesting. She said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, because your brother is going to be instrumental in you having a child. Can you imagine the look on this woman's face when I told her that? And so the whole idea of giving this type of information is not to be fascinating or amazing. And it's not to tell the person that I'm the only one that has the abilities. We all do. It's just that in this case, I'm the one using my abilities to help her empower herself. Okay, so time goes by. And her brother has a young daughter who is in her teens, her earlier teens, and she has a baby. And so the short of the story is that this brother's daughter, gave up the baby for adoption to his sister, her aunt. And so she took the baby and adopted the baby as her own and raised the child. And so therefore her brother was instrumental in her having a baby.
That's very cool. And to know that you were able to see that and pick that up energetically from the individuals. Now, someone would say to you, is that a psychic reading? How would you explain to them how that energetic connection to consciousness?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a really great question, because the word psychic has sometimes been used derisively.
Yes.
As, oh, you must be psychic, or psychic, as some people say. And the difference is that using the intuitive faculties under the auspices of service work, the nobility of serving someone's highest and greatest good, takes a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of respect, because obviously there's so many things that I could say, and there's so many ways that I could say it. So if you'll forgive me, I'm always watching the mind of the person that I'm speaking to, so that I can speak in a manner and in a context that is most suitable, most appropriate. We once had a gathering, and when the gathering was complete, this woman walks up to me and she looks at me in the eye and she says, well, I'm 40 and I've never been married and I have no children. So my first thought is exactly what you would think. You'd think, well, why is she telling me this? And so I thought, okay, well, that's interesting. I said, but within just 2 years, you're going to give birth, you're going to get married, and right after that, you're going to give birth to a boy. And so certainly 2 years later, she got married, and right after that, she gave birth to a boy. I know because she is a relative of one of my first assistants in Canada.
Hey, Kimberly, welcome. Glad to see you.
Hey, Kimmy.
Yeah, it's nice to see people and to see them come up. And of course, as we've been saying all along here, is that we're giving away a free private session to anyone, a brief one here on the radio today. Just have to type in a comment, and I'm not sure if yeah. Hi, I watch. Yeah, it's good. It's good as you watch, and we will definitely keep going here. So, welcome, Kimmy. And anyhow, here we go. So, personal experiences. How can you tell someone what to expect from their private session when they have a private session with you?
It's not magic, and it's not a quick fix. I'm not going to wave a magic wand. It's not Chicken Little. The sky is falling. The sky is falling. I'm more of the how-to than the gee whiz type. I'm not one to go into fascination. You know, both of those stories I told you had a little bit of future in them, but that's only to help the person to empower themselves and to know that this is real. So what can you expect? Everything I'm saying is made to help you to empower yourself. It is designed for the purpose of taking the mystery out of metaphysics. Now, within that, there's always going to be some mystery, because without faith, it's almost impossible to grow spiritually. We have to be able to trust beyond just what our intellect knows. But we tend to trust the intellect a little too much over the intuition. And this is a problem, because a lot of us have not necessarily developed our intuition. Think of the intuition as a muscle. And faith is the power of the will to move that muscle. So while we have intuition, not many of us have cultivated it to the point where that muscle now has strength and tone.
Right.
And so the idea is to help that person to engage more in faith. Now, our last radio program that we did was a lot about flower readings. And if you don't know, a flower reading is a group gathering where maybe 10, 12 people come.
Hey, Carrie Ann.
And they put a flower on the table. And I don't know who brought which flower. I sit down after. So the point is, you know, I pick up a flower and I shut my eyes and I do a reading and a healing, and I don't know who I'm speaking to. So the whole point is the anonymity is about me being in faith. I have to put myself at risk. But the reason I do that is it's very difficult to teach spirituality and metaphysics unless you actually do it in this way. Otherwise, it becomes something you heard in a lecture or something you read in a book. And so it's to teach the person I'm working with that if they have faith in their own intuition, that it may not always work out in the way that they think it should, because the higher sense perceptions don't work in the same way as the five senses. But at the same time, when you start trusting and having more faith in yourself and your own abilities, your life can very much become much more streamlined. It just may not always be what you want, but it'll be what you need. Think of your children. Those of you who are out there who are mothers, and your child says, I want this, and you say, well, I know, but you need this. And so you have to decide, you know, what's going to be better for that child. Is it always going to be what they want? Well, maybe once in a while, sure. But the idea is, this one fellow came to me and he said, I just want to know how to make money. That's all I want. I want to make money, lots of money. That's all I want. And I said, okay, I understand. So let me help you understand, you know, what's behind that and how to achieve that. There's more to it than just only the money itself. Because when you talk about spiritual counseling, it's to help the person realize that they do have a higher nature that sees beyond the illusions of space and time. Well, why is that necessary? Because the primary teachings in spirituality are that we live in the illusion of separation, that I'm here and Deirdre's over there. So quite clearly, you can see there is distance between us, but in the spiritual sense, there is no separation. And this is why there is so much science out there that has proven that we are not separate from anything. There's over 500 scientific studies proving that our consciousness affects biological and electrical systems. This is not smoke and mirrors. This is not airy-fairy. It's not even entertainment, although sometimes I hope my humor gets through. But again, what can a person expect? Self-empowerment. And everything I say is designed to help that person to become stronger.
So, Carrie, if you're still online, can you let us know? Because we would love to do a reading for you if you're still online. So can you let us know somehow? Write a comment or let us know if you're still online. And we'll move along into that. What I wanted to share with everyone is that because of this show today and how we're getting organized and moving forward in your teachings and everything, that you have a special offer for those who listen to this show today.
Yeah.
And contact me at info@lightnews.org. And Carrie Ann says, I'm driving, so I'm listening. I'm talking to text. Well, this is wonderful, Carrie Ann, because we're going to, on air live, give you a reading for free, if that's all right. And you don't have to text and respond. You can just listen, and then if you get the opportunity, you can let us know how accurate it was or not. So, Carrie Ann, Richard's tuning in to you here, and we'll see how this goes.
I've done many, many radio programs, and if it was an hour program, you know, we would go for the first half hour just doing the intro and some of the interview techniques, and the second half hour I'd have people calling in. And sometimes people would call in, you hear their voice, right, because you're on radio, and I would stop them at hello and then just start reading them because I don't need very much. Even here, you know, what Deirdre and I are looking at is a laptop computer screen, and off to the right is text and names and whatnot, people typing in their comments and emojis and things like that. So Carrie feels very much what I call third chakra is what's going on. That's the one above the navel, the solar plexus. Third chakra is about truth, uniqueness, and power. And it's also about what is called the exposition of the self. That means how you are uniquely positioning yourself in comparison or in contrast to the people around you. So how you're putting yourself out there and how you see yourself within the context of your constellation of relationships, friends, family, siblings, work, that kind of thing. So your third chakra is very active, almost a little overactive. And so it feels like there is a moment of assertion, that you are in a place where you are wanting to assert yourself, but that you may be kind of hesitant or have some trepidation that if you assert yourself, that it'll create a lot of changes. So think of this as the big red button. You know, if you push the button, then it's going to change everything, but you can't unpush it once you push it. And so it's one of those things where you have to make a commitment to what you feel is the right thing to do. But so often the right thing to do is not necessarily the logical thing to do, but it is the right thing to do. So this is one of those moments where you do trust your intuition and you say, okay, well, I've gone through a lot of emotional ups and downs about whatever that subject is that you're dealing with. And it can cause you to be in that place of a conundrum or a dilemma where you think, oh my gosh, if I do this, what about this? What about that? But having decided what you uniquely feel is the right thing to do is very much what the intuitive powers in the third chakra is all about. Remember, the intuitive powers are not separate. That is you. It's one form of you. So the idea right now is for you to trust more what you uniquely feel the right thing is to do. And then, you know, like the Dalai Lama, just be harmless and compassionate in every thought and every action. And in that way, not everybody's going to be happy with your decision, and they don't have to be, but you own your power, and then, you know, they own their power and they own their responses or their reactions. But it will be the only way you can really help them is if you are evolving yourself and staying in that place of emotional innocence, okay? And please be careful if you're driving and texting. You can just send it to me telepathically, right?
Well, there you go. And I see we have some other people. And hi, Patty. It's good to see you as well. For anyone who is still on air and listening, and of course, when we go off air, we're offering 25% discount for all private sessions booked before the end of November. So all you need to do is say, I heard it on Light News Radio, Realms of Self-Empowerment, and give me a shout. You can either email me send me a message over Messenger here on Facebook, or you can call me at 877-242-5721, and I will set that up at your earliest convenience. We have a really exciting bunch of stuff happening, and one is Dr. Jelusich has written a new book. Mm-hmm. We're in the process of editing and publishing and mm-hmm. all of that kind of stuff. But can you tell us a little bit about what you have put together, please?
Well, I started writing essays in the 90s, and they were the evocative type of essays, the type that get you to access deep feelings and yearnings of the soul. And I had published back in the late 90s a little booklet called The Book of Essays, which was a collection of about 10 or 12. And so what I did lately is that book went out of print quite a long time ago, and I've resurrected the essays and formatted it to another booklet. So we're in the process right now of, there are at least 12 essays in there, and we're in the process right now of getting ready to release the booklet.
Very nice, very nice. It's about 60 pages, so it's a nice little booklet, and of course, as I edited it, I got to read them. And so I think that people would really enjoy it. So we're going to have that hopefully available very soon. And then the other thing that we're really excited about is Dr. J's Cosmic Circle.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
Well, you know, a lot of people call me Dr. J because Jelusich isn't exactly the easiest
jellyfish.
Jellyfish, right? Jelly beans isn't the easiest thing to say. And so the Cosmic Circle was created to give people a special place to go on the website, to have a kind of a members only section where you would have discounts on future events and access to meditations and to writings that, you know, the public just wouldn't necessarily see. And it's a way for us to offer you benefits that normally, you know, just wouldn't be available to the public. And it's a way of saying thank you also for your dedication and support to what Light News represents, because our goal is to be a world presence in helping to empower the human being and to help take the mystery out of metaphysics.
And basically, it's a $100 investment, mm-hmm. and for that $100, you get well over $250 worth of items. You mm-hmm. receive both of Dr. Jelusich's books, I Can Relate and Eye of the Lotus.
Yep.
You receive mm-hmm. his Crystal Bowls of Tibet CD.
Yes.
And you also receive 5 meditations mm-hmm. that he has put together. Plus, throughout the year, there'll be a variety of opportunities for discounts on events, private readings, flower readings, mm-hmm. et cetera, et cetera. And so it really is something that is cost effective, but really beneficial to the individual, not just from day one, but over the course of the whole year. And so it's exciting to share that.
Well, you know what? We should give them a discount today on the private session.
We did. 25%.
Oh, really? Did you already mention that?
I did.
When did you say that?
Oh, probably about 8-10 minutes ago.
Must have been from another dimension.
Yes, so anyone today, or of course after this has been posted and it's still live on air, between today and the end of the month, if you book a private session with Dr. Jelusich, you will get your private session at 25% off. So that's a nice little savings. Yeah. So we're anxious for you to take a look at Dr. J's Cosmic Circle and sign up and join us. And we're also anxious for you to book a private session. All the information is always on our website, www.lightnews.org. And we work diligently to keep it up to date, especially the calendar of events. And speaking of events, you are doing different workshops in San Diego at Healing Therapies.
That's right, in La Mesa.
In La Mesa.
Yep, owned by Sue Calloway. And Healing Therapies is a great place where they have different modes of healing, whether it's essential oils or biotuning forks or something they call the Beamer, which is an electronic device, yoga teachings, a really nice apothecary of herbal remedies, and me. I do workshops there. I've been doing workshops and got a few coming up.
Yes. So what's coming up? You've got on the 9th of November is the astral. Is that no? It's not the astral travel. It was the astral. It's a mediumship.
Mediumship. And then on the 30th of November is astral travel. And then on December 14th is hitting the reset button. What happens if you need to hit the reset button? Well, I'll tell you, sometimes I feel like I need to hit the reset button often. So, with all of the changes going on. Do you know there's an election coming up?
Yeah, we won't get into politics like news radio realms of self-empowerment,
right?
Especially because I'm in a Canadian, and we definitely have our opinion. But anyhow, I wanted to say, what would people expect in your mediumship workshop?
Well, mediumship is the ability to speak on behalf of a disincarnated spirit. So an example would be, I was working with this fellow who English was his second language, and I was doing some of the healing work called Integrative Chakra Therapy, which I've been teaching for 20 years to energy medicine practitioners. And I'm working with this fellow, and I see his deceased brother, Ivan, come through. And Ivan has been gone for 5 years that I can see in working with the spirit. And so when we're finished, I asked this fellow, I said, how long ago did your brother Ivan pass? I knew it was 5 years, but he said, 5 years ago. And so I knew he had a brother. I knew his name was Ivan. I knew he passed, and I knew it was 5 years ago. So mediumship is acting as an intermediary between the spirit realm, if you like, which is called astral dimension, and the physical dimension. And so you're the conveyor of messages. You know, Uncle Joe says that you should stop smoking the pipe because it really bothers so-and-so. And that's what mediumship is. And again, sometimes when we went back to our discussion of psychics, is that sometimes the information is given in fascinating ways, you know, where it's not really helpful. It's more like, starry-eyed type of information. And I'm more the type of person that says, well, okay, if we're going to have a mediumship workshop, let me show you how it's done. So this workshop that we're doing at Healing Therapies is like a taster, because the full-on workshop is an all-day Saturday or all-day Sunday workshop where you get even more deeply into it. But our workshop at Healing Therapies is 2 hours, and you'll get a chance to see what billet readings are. And people say, what's a billet? A billet is like a folded over piece of index card, and the person writes their question on it, and then they fold the card in half, and then it's put in a basket. So typically, like in spiritualism, you'd have a basket with a whole bunch of these cards in them, and the person who wrote the question would put some kind of symbol on there. So then that way, when you pick it up, you're not saying who asked the question. But then there's a question that says, well, what does Uncle Joe have to say? So then the reader would be standing there in front of the group and say, okay, let me tune in. Okay, Uncle Joe says whatever that information is. So the idea is to show you there's life after life, that there really is no death. There's only a transformation from one form into another form. And so with the idea, again, being a form of self-empowerment. And that's why we do this. All of these workshops, like astral travel, showing you what it is, how it works, how to do it, safe ways that you can engage in astral travel. The workshop on hitting the reset button is always about tools and techniques. So you can be sure that, you know, when you speak to someone like me, you're going to be getting tools and techniques and methods to help you empower yourself. Just like if I send you to the gym and say, lift these weights, and this will be very beneficial for you.
So what are the costs for these workshops at Healing Therapies?
Oh, they're very reasonable. I think they're $20.
Great.
Yeah.
And they start at
6:30 in the evening.
and run till 9.
About 8:30.
8:30.
Yeah, about 2 hours.
Yeah. So I mean, for the amount of information that you receive, they're well worth their penny in gold.
They were worth their penny in gold. Yes. Whatever that means.
You haven't heard that phrase before?
No.
Oh, another Canadian phrase just for Dr. J.
Hey.
Hey.
People, my home is San Diego, but I do come to Calgary often. In fact, we're broadcasting from Calgary, Canada right now. And so people will say, well, Dr. J, I thought you were from Canada. I just happen to go here often. And then, my children who are adults now, last year, one of them looked at me and said, Dad, you just spoke Canadian.
Hey.
And I looked at them and I said, what are you talking about? Because I didn't say the quintessential hey or a. I must have put some kind of inflection.
You must have said sorry.
Yeah, I must have said a boot or something, or put some kind of inflection on my voice that you may only hear in Canada. Or I must have been overbearing polite.
Yes, yeah. So the other thing I wanted to just touch base on before we finish up our show today is, again, we talked about flower readings last time on our radio program. And I wanted to briefly bring that up again because I don't think people understand or question how accurate a Skype flower reading can be.
Well, those are two terms that we just need to describe a little bit. One is a flower reading is where a person brings a single flower and they put it on the table. Nobody else touches it. They put it on a table, and then the premise is anonymity. Everyone is seated in the room. Then I come and sit down. I have a recorder right next to me because I record every single reading. And I pick up a flower, but I have no idea who brought which flower, and they don't volunteer who is who. Only at the end of the evening, if they want to reveal which flower is theirs, do they, but usually they don't. But sometimes they do. And so that's the first part, is what is a flower reading? It's anonymity. It's to prove that the intuition is real. I mean, I've done flower readings, tens of thousands of flower readings over 26 years now. And in the US, Canada, Mexico, Germany, Switzerland, and Japan. And so the power of the flower reading is very compelling because I don't know who I'm reading for. And a lot of people think, oh, can you see them? Like if it was Deirdre's flower, would I see an image of her in my mind? And it doesn't work that way. But what I do see is what I call a soul. So to me, the soul is still you. It's just you on a higher level of yourself. And so when I start talking, I'm talking about how that soul quality infuses into your daily waking personality. And this is often right down to birthmarks on the body and past lives. And, the idea, I'm teaching a course at the California Institute of Human Science right now called Past Lives, Karma, and the Survival of Consciousness. And we know now that past lives is absolutely real. And the thing about birthmarks is sometimes I'll see that. We had a woman here recently who I said she had some discoloration here in the upper part of her chest. You see where I'm touching here? And I call that a power center. And sure enough, at the end of the evening, she identified herself and she opened her collar a little bit right here. And you see this discoloration in the tissue from where the power was coming through her. She was a kind of a healer, but maybe she didn't know that. So that's the first part, is flower readings that are done in person. The second part is flower readings that are done remotely. So in the same way that we have a camera embedded in the laptop here, and you're seeing an electronic image of Deirdre and myself, I've done flower readings at great distances, over 500 kilometers, and distance doesn't matter. It could be Europe. In fact, we have a woman in Europe who just interviewed me, Paji, who is wanting to set up her own flower readings that we'll do from here to England. And so that their camera is pointed at a table of flowers. The last one we did with a place called Lac La Biche, which was a First Nations healing center about 500 kilometers away. And their camera was pointed at a table of 12 flowers, and they had numbers next to each flower, so I could just say number 12, number 11. But I couldn't see anybody in the room. I could only see what was on the table, and they had their microphone muted, so I couldn't hear anyone in the room. And to make it even more interesting is that about in the third flower, their internet went down. So I took a screenshot of the image of the 12 flowers, and then I called them on the phone, and we did a speakerphone, and I did the remaining flowers just by looking at the photograph, the still photograph of the flowers. And they were astounded at how accurate it was. So while I appreciate the fact that it's accurate, it's more important that the person realizes that there is this connectivity between us that is very sublime, it's very eloquent, it's very beautiful, and that we really are connected. I'm putting on my glasses so I can see some of these comments. And the person that we read for said, what I heard is accurate.
So thanks a lot, Carrie Ann. It's good that that we can do these on air and that can show people that it's not just something that's made up. It really is.
Yeah, and it's not really entertainment either.
No.
But flower readings are very popular, and I really enjoy doing them because I feel it's a form of service work. And the idea is I put myself at risk. Here I am sitting down in a group of people, most of whom I don't know, and they're sitting with a guy they don't know who's going to give them information in front of everybody else. So there's always that respectfulness that is there. But flower readings are so powerful and so compelling. When I was in Japan and we had a flower reading there for all the people, of course, the attendees mostly only spoke Japanese. So whether I'm in Europe or in Japan, I'm speaking through a translator. And so I would say a sentence and then the translator would do their thing. Then I'd say a sentence. And every once in a while, you'd hear someone in the group go, "Hontani." Hontani means, oh, cool. That's really cool. So it doesn't matter what language it is because consciousness is consciousness.
I'm just moving you over a little bit. I can't. We need to
Okay.
move you back into screen. Slowly, you've been moving out of screen.
Slowly he turned, step by step, inch by inch.
Oh, well, I'm pretty much out of questions for you today, Dr. Jelusich, but if you were to give our listeners here in Light News Radio Realms of Self-Empowerment a tool or something that they could take away with them today to help them for the rest of the day and the rest of the weekend, what would that be?
No matter what challenge you're facing, no matter what happens, there's always a flow in this universe. It is we who often fall away from that flow because of the ego or because of fears or for some other odd reason. But you can always return to that flow through trust and faith. It's not easy to have faith. Faith is trusting with your heart something to be true or knowing something in your heart before your mind has it figured out. But oftentimes when we're tested to see if we're really going to trust our faith or try push our way through with just thinking. So my advice to you is to trust with your heart before your mind has everything figured out. I didn't say give up any practical thinking. I didn't say give up your pragmatism or your rationality. I'm just saying flex your intuition first. Then you can apply what you know. And you'll achieve a much, much greater balance, but a much more harmonious balance between the spirit and the body.
That's very good. Very good. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. And don't forget about our special offers that we've made in this program. And to please follow, like, and share so that we can start to build a bit of a community. I also want to say and put a shout out that if there is anyone that's listening and paying attention to our radio shows that wants to be a guest, we would love to have you on the show. And, contact Dr. Jelusich at lightnews.org or myself at info@lightnews.org, and we'll make arrangements to have you on our show.
And remember, my Cosmic Circle is available anytime. And if you want that 25% off of a private session in person or by Skype or Zoom or phone, you have until the end of November. Just contact us and let us know.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a fabulous day and a wonderful weekend.
Thank you, everybody. Many blessings.
There we
You
go.
got to use the mouse.
I got to use the
Yeah.
mouse. If you end this session, save it later.